All right. Obviously, the weekend is not complete, but we've got a little bit of a break, or really a long break here before, our last pick and then the undrafted free agency process. We're really pleased with at least where we sit, as we head into the sixth round. We expect by the end of the weekend we'll be able to add, 10 rookies that we're really excited about, as well as, 2 future fourth round picks in the 27 draft. At the onset of this, or I guess, last week, I talked about, our goal heading into the weekend is, not just the first round, but it's how do we maximize the resources that we head into the draft with. And that's whether, you're using those resources, some of them for veteran players, whether you're using it to generate more by trading down, obviously the players that you select, and then the future draft capital that you're able to manufacture. So we're really pleased with where we sit today with the combination of players and future assets that we're able to create. We're looking forward to finishing strong and signing some undrafted free agents that...
Andrew Berry just walked to a microphone and announced the Cleveland Browns drafted another quarterback. Is this man trying to make job harder? Here's every word Berry said and what it actually means. So, don't skip a single second of this video. And if this story touches your heart, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from? Let's begin. The draft weekend is not even over yet, and Andrew Berry is already making moves that have every Browns fan frozen in place, staring at their phone, trying to figure out what they just saw. Shedeur Sanders is barely even unpacked. The excitement from that selection hadn't even fully settled into the fan base before Cleveland walked back to the microphone and announced another quarterback, Taylan Green. Arkansas State, Sun Belt Conference. A name that most casual NFL fans had never heard before that moment, but a name that immediately sent a shockwave through every Browns fan community, every comment section, and every group chat that had spent the last several months dreaming about what Shedeur Sanders could become in this offense. And I get it. The initial reaction makes complete sense, because on the surface, this looks strange. You just committed to your potential franchise quarterback, and days later you're adding a fourth one to the room, a raw, unpolished project with 37 turnovers across 2 college seasons and a resume built in one of the least scrutinized conferences in college football. What is happening? What is Berry doing? Is this a competition? Is this a message? Is this something the Browns fan base should be genuinely worried about? Those are real questions, and this video is going to answer every single one of them. But before we jump to conclusions, before we let the panic set in, let's actually look at what Berry said. Because the framing he used at that press conference is important. He didn't walk up to that microphone confused or reactive. He walked up deliberate, organized. He talked about 10 rookies added over the course of the weekend, 2 future fourth-round picks banked for 2027, asset maximization, a calculated approach to building both present and future roster value simultaneously. This is not the language of a front office that stumbled into its own draft. This is the language of a front office that came in with a specific plan and executed it on schedule. So the real question isn't whether Berry knows what he's doing. His track record answers that. The real question is what role Taylan Green specifically plays inside that plan. Because there is a massive difference between adding a quarterback for depth and adding a quarterback who changes the entire dynamic of the room. Green's 4.36 speed is verified. His arm strength is legitimate. His physical ceiling is the kind that makes veteran scouts stop mid-conversation and take a second look. This is not a throwaway pick. Cleveland believed in something when they made this selection, and understanding what they believed is the key to understanding everything that follows. Because this move is either the smartest thing Berry has done for Shedeur Sanders' development, or it's the most misunderstood decision of the entire draft weekend. And right now, most people are landing on the wrong side of that argument. Before we figure out exactly where Taylan Green fits in this equation, we need to get something straight first. We need to talk about where Shedeur Sanders actually stands right now, because that answer might genuinely surprise you. Let me tell you something the headlines are not going to tell you. Shedeur Sanders was never supposed to have it easy. Not in this league, not in this city, and definitely not in this moment. Think about what this man actually walked into. He came out of one of the most chaotic pre-draft cycles in recent memory. A first-round talent who sat and watched his name get skipped round after round, while analysts debated his attitude, his father's influence, and everything except the actual football. And when Cleveland finally called his name, the narrative didn't stop. It just changed shape. Now the story is 4 quarterbacks in the room. Now the story is Taylan Green's speed. Now the story is Shedeur already in trouble before he throws a single regular season pass? No, absolutely not. And I need you to hear me on this. Shedeur Sanders did not walk into Cleveland carrying doubt. He walked in carrying receipts. A college career that proved he can read a defense, go through progressions, and deliver the football with precision under pressure. He didn't land in some soft, comfortable situation where everything was set up for him to succeed. He landed in one of the most historically complicated quarterback cities in the entire NFL, a fan base that has been promised franchise quarterbacks more times than they can count, and he walked through that door anyway, without flinching. That tells you something about who this man is. Now, let's talk about Todd Monken, because this is the part the panic crowd conveniently ignores. Monken is not the kind of offensive coordinator who hands out meaningful reps out of charity. His system demands precision. It demands football intelligence. It demands a quarterback who can process information quickly and execute when the play breaks down. You don't just plug a warm body into that system and hope for the best. Monken has spent his entire career building quarterbacks, sharpening their decision-making, expanding their football IQ, and designing systems that bring out the very best in whoever is under center. The fact that Barry kept circling back to Monken's name during that press conference was not accidental. That was a message. Whoever earns this job is going to be developed, not just used. And developed quarterbacks in Monken's system become dangerous ones. Here's the other thing I want you to lock in on. 4 quarterbacks in a training camp roster is not a scandal. It is not a red flag. It is football operations 101. Every serious, well-run organization carries that kind of depth going into the summer because the preseason is physical, attrition is real, and you cannot afford to be one injury away from being completely exposed at the most important position on the field. This is not Cleveland doing something unusual. This is Cleveland doing something right. So the next time you see a take that frames this quarterback room as evidence that Shedeur is already on shaky ground, remember this. The media sees 4 quarterbacks and immediately reaches for the chaos narrative. But smart Browns fans know better. Smart Browns fans know that only 1 quarterback in that building was taken in the first round. Only 1 came in with the draft capital, the coaching investment, and the organizational commitment behind him. And that is not Taylan Green. That is not Dillon Gabriel. That is Shedeur Sanders. And that matters more than any depth chart headline ever will. All right, let's talk about Taylan Green honestly, because he deserves that. And frankly, so does this conversation. Because right now, a lot of people are treating this pick like it's a betrayal, like Cleveland just smuggled a spy into Shedeur's locker room. And I get the instinct, I really do. When you've been waiting for your franchise quarterback, and the front office turns around and drafts another one days later, the natural reaction is suspicion. But suspicion isn't analysis. And if we're going to have a real conversation about what Taylan Green means for this team, we have to start with what he actually is. The 4.36 speed is not a rumor. That is a verified, documented, stop what you're doing athletic gift. That is the kind of number that makes every defensive coordinator in the league uncomfortable. And when you pair that with a frame that scouts would build in a laboratory and a throwing arm that can stress every level of the field, you start to understand why Cleveland didn't hesitate when his name was still on the board. Deep in the 6th round, Barry didn't flinch when reporters floated the idea of moving Green to receiver or tight end either. He shut it down immediately. Taylan Green is a quarterback, full stop. That's the only position this organization is developing him at. That tells you the belief is real. Now the turnovers. 37 over 2 seasons. I'm not going to pretend that number doesn't exist, because it does. It's significant, and it's the first thing every skeptic is going to throw at you. But context is not an excuse. Context is information. Green was operating as a one-man offense at Arkansas State, carrying a team with a defense that was getting carved up week after week against some of the most aggressive pass rush looks in college football. When your team is down constantly and you're forced into late-game desperation throws against elite competition, the turnover number climbs. That's not a character flaw. That's a situational reality, and situational problems have situational solutions. That's literally what NFL coaching staffs exist to fix. But here is the argument I really need you to sit with. Elite competition does not weaken great players. It reveals them, sharpens them, forces them to become something bigger than comfort ever could. Shedeur Sanders walking into a training camp where Taylan Green is behind him with that kind of physical ceiling that is not a threat to Shedeur's development. That is the catalyst for it. Every single rep matters now. Every decision under pressure means something. There are no throwaway days, no cruise control practices, no mornings where Shedeur can coast and assume the job is already his. That competitive fire is exactly how championship quarterbacks separate themselves from everyone else who had the talent but never faced real stakes in the building. Taylan Green is not walking into Berea to take anything from Shedeur Sanders. He's walking in to make absolutely certain that when Shedeur wins this job, and I believe he will, nobody anywhere can say it was handed to him. That's not a threat, that's a gift. Step back for a second. Stop looking at individual pieces and look at the whole picture. Because when you do, when you actually zoom out and look at everything Cleveland did this draft weekend from start to finish, something becomes very clear. This was not a collection of random decisions. This was a blueprint, and every single line of that blueprint has one name written at the center of it. Let's start with the offensive line, because this is the detail that doesn't get nearly enough attention in the middle of all the quarterback room noise. Barry said it himself. Offensive line is one of those positions that once the season starts, you simply cannot go out and acquire. You cannot manufacture a quality blindside protector in October. You cannot call up a dominant run blocker off a street corner in November. Those players have to be built, developed, and locked into your roster before the first snap of the regular season. That window is the off-season. That window is the draft, and Cleveland used it. They invested real draft capital in protecting the pocket, not for a quarterback they were uncertain about, not as a general organizational habit, but specifically, during the same weekend, they brought in their potential franchise quarterback. You do not build walls around a house you are planning to abandon. Front offices do not pour resources into blindside protection for quarterbacks they are already mentally moving on from. That investment is a declaration of intent, whether Barry said it out loud or not. Then, look at the future capital strategy. 2 fourth-round picks banked for 2027. Think about what that actually communicates. A front office operating in panic mode spends everything it has right now trying to plug holes and survive the present. A front office that believes in what it's building holds assets, plans ahead, and positions itself to keep improving from a place of stability. Cleveland is doing the latter. They are not scrambling. They are not desperate. They are constructing deliberately, patiently, with the kind of organizational confidence that only exists when you believe your foundation is already solid. And the foundation of any NFL franchise is the quarterback position. Barry's willingness to bank picks for 2027 tells you everything about how he feels about who is currently standing under center. Now, pull it all together. The offensive line depth, the banked future capital, the development-first offensive coordinator, the competitive quarterback room designed to produce sharpness, not chaos. Every single move this organization made over the course of this draft weekend connects back to the same conclusion. Cleveland is not hedging. Cleveland is not quietly searching for an escape route from Shedeur Sanders. Cleveland is building around him brick by brick, pick by pick, investment by investment. Andrew Barry did not construct this roster for a quarterback competition that could go either way. He built it for a quarterback coronation. And now the only thing left is for Shedeur Sanders to walk into that building, outwork every single person in that room, and go claim what this entire organization has already started building for him. And based on everything we know about who Shedeur Sanders is, that's exactly what he's going to do. I need you to stay with me for this last part, because this is the part that actually matters. Cleveland Browns fans have been carrying something heavy for a long time. Decades of quarterbacks who arrived with promise and left with question marks. Names that got the fan base excited, got the city believing, and then quietly disappeared into the footnotes of NFL history. That pain is not exaggerated. It is not a punchline. It is a real, lived experience that an entire city has absorbed year after year, draft after draft, Press conference after press conference. And if you're a Browns fan watching this right now, you already know exactly what I'm talking about. You've felt every single one of those disappointments in your chest. I'm not here to dismiss that. I'm here to honor it because that history is precisely what makes this specific moment so much bigger than the outside world is willing to recognize. But here is where everything changes. Shedeur Sanders is not a project. He is not a hopeful flyer or a developmental gamble that might work out in 3 years if everything goes perfectly. He is a first-round caliber quarterback with a football IQ that scouts openly admitted was among the highest in this entire draft class. He grew up studying the position from one of the most football-intelligent families this sport has ever produced. He has seen pressure from every angle: media pressure, expectations pressure, the pressure of carrying a program on his back, while the entire NFL world debated his character instead of his game. And through all of it, through every slight and every skip and every moment where his name didn't get called when it should have, he didn't crack. Not once. That draft slide didn't break Shedeur Sanders. It loaded him. And he is bringing every single round of that frustration directly into Cleveland's training camp this summer. So, here is my prediction, and I'm standing on it completely. Shedeur Sanders wins the starting quarterback job before week 1. Not because the competition hands it to him, not because Taylan Green isn't genuinely talented or Dylan Gabriel doesn't compete hard. They will. This room is real. But Shedeur is going to answer every single challenge thrown at him, because that is who he has always been. When the stakes are highest and the eyes are watching, the most prepared player in that building wins. And Shedeur Sanders has been preparing for this his entire life. 5 years from now, people are going to look back at this draft weekend with completely different eyes. They are going to realize that Andrew Berry didn't complicate Shedeur Sanders' path to the starting job. He fortified it. He built competition around him, protection in front of him, and a development system designed to bring out the very best version of him. Cleveland is finally going to have their quarterback. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you believe Shedeur locks up that starting job before the season opens? And do you think 5 years from now, Taylan Green gets remembered as the pick that slowed Shedeur down, or the one that made him even sharper? Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about it.